I'm in golf, and I'm a master CPGA professional, and I've taught for 35 years, coming on to close to 100,000 lessons. So during all this time, I've studied just about every method and just about all the new techniques that I've seen and researched to find that there are thousands upon thousands of drills out there that are available for people to use to improve their swings. Unfortunately, because there's that many, it also lends to a lot of confusion, and people, they get exasperated and they get fed up, and they soon leave their practice regimes. So what we've done at Maximum Golf, what we're doing in this series is, over the years, I've tested all these drills and methods of teaching, put them to the test, hands-on, and I've compiled the drills that I think are the most important for different parts of the swing, and that's what we're going to work on in this program. There's 7 sections to this program, 7 sections, and each section is a pertinent part of the golf swing, and there's drills for each section. And there's more than one drill just in case your body doesn't like a particular drill. So you do have a choice. We won't be using a ball for this, and a lot of people say, "What? No ball? What good is this?" But actually, it really is the best way to learn. As soon as you put a ball down there, it just breeds anxiety, and you never really. I feel people are too fixated on hitting the ball, and they never really get into the positions that they need to get into in the golf swing because the ball stops them from doing that. So we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to at least make you familiar with these positions that you should reach, and then we'll put the ball down there, and at least you will be able to swing through the proper positions. So let's get started, and hopefully this will help you become a better player. Okay, before we get into the particular sections of this program, we're going to just discuss a little bit about what we call the ball flight laws. In golf, there's not really many laws that govern what happens to the golf ball. There's only really 5, and I think it's important that you understand them, because normally when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing or wrong, it's usually one of the ball flight laws that you're messing up. Let's just go over these ball flight laws a little bit so that you're clear in your mind what makes things happen in the golf swing, what makes it go sideways, what makes it go straight, where does the distance come from. And these are laws. These are the absolutes in the golf swing. So let's just look maybe at the first one, what we call the club face position at impact. All right, so where does this club come in at impact? So if I put it down now, right behind the ball, in what we call a square position where the bottom edge of the club is dead perpendicular to the target line, obviously, if this club arrives in that position, the ball will go fairly straight. But if the club face is what we call in an open position, it's going to slice over to the right, and if it's in a closed position, it's going to go over to the left. So the ball flight law there is the squareness of the club at impact, where your club face is at impact, will dictate a direction of the hit. So that's one of the ball flight laws. Another ball flight law when we have the club down here is centerness of hit, we call it. Where does the ball actually hit the club face? So if I just bend down here and pick the ball up and kind of explain a little bit more to you, that's the toe of the club way out on this end, and that's the heel. So where this ball actually makes contact has a great deal to do with the hit. Obviously, if it is not hit in the center, you won't get the distance you want. If it's hit out on the toe or the heel, it deflects, and you're going to get a shot that the distance won't be there, and probably the direction won't be there as well. So now we have a square club face at impact and centerness of hit. Another ball flight law, the third one would be, as we're coming down into the hit zone into the ball, is the angle of approach that the club makes as it's coming down. And with our short irons, it's very important that we are contacting the ball just slightly before the ground so we can pinch it and spin it up in the air. Obviously, with the longer clubs, the woods, the fairway woods, the longer irons in your driver, we're playing the ball further up in our stance, so we kind of meet that ball right at the very tail end of the bottom of the swing, so we can sweep the ball up off the fairway like it's supposed to be. So the angle of approach is a very important aspect and one of the ball flight laws that will govern trajectory and spin on the ball. And the next one would be, and the very important one, we have a whole section at the end in this, is path. And path is the ball flight law that dictates the starting off position where your ball's going to go. Path is just the path or the arc or the circle, basically, that the club travels as it approaches and goes through the ball and through the follow-through. The path, there's different paths that we see. Some are right or some are wrong. We'll discuss those in the path drill. However, obviously, if the path is erroneous and it's coming across the ball or too far into out, that's going to dictate the direction of hit of your golf shot. Very important part of the golf swing is path. The last one would be, that would dictate club ball flight, would be the speed you swing the club head speed. So obviously, the faster you swing, the further the ball is going to go. But what we find amateurs in just about to the 95 percentile swing a lot faster than they should be swinging. So that's kind of an oxymoron. Let me swing hard to hit it far, but I think most people swing way too hard. They should slow their swings down. And with slower speed but meeting the ball in the center of the club and on the right angle of approach, you're going to get more distance than trying to wail away at it and just hope. So those are the 5 ball flight laws, and they really do govern what happens to your ball on every shot. And there's only really 3 elements to every shot. One is direction, one is trajectory, and one is distance. So there's really 3 things in each shot, except for a putt. Obviously, we don't want trajectory. So 3 elements, and then the ball flight laws. So grip, posture, stance, path, weight shift, wrist hinge proper. All these things contribute to how well you perform these ball flight laws. So there's really only 5 things. There's not thousands that really govern the flight of the ball. Hope that clears that up. Okay, we'll carry on with the first section of the 7 sections that we're going to go over today. And the first section is setup. The setup is just basically the positions you get into before you hit the shot, which will include gripping the club properly, your stance, alignment, your weight distribution, and we're going to go through all of that. Ball and the placement of the ball between your feet, where is it, center, forward. We're going to explain all that. First of all, we're going to really investigate the grip here. Between my forefinger and my thumb is a V shape right here. You can see that. And if I had an arrow drawn, that V shape should arrive right up into the front of my right shoulder here. All right, so this V up into my right shoulder. My thumb is just a little bit right of center on the shaft, and this is the control hand of the golf swing. So it's very important we get it on there properly. And you can see that the butt end of the club here is right below my heel pad. What not to do would be, in this case, crank your hand too far over to the right or the trail side of your body, or crank it too far over to the left. This would cause you to roll your wrist over and slice the golf ball. This would be the exact opposite. It would close, what we call close the club face, de-loft the club, and probably hit it dead left. So we're kind of in between the extremes here when we have the V pointing to the right shoulder. When you put the trail hand on, it only goes down the finger lines. Very important. You can see it across across the finger line diagonally down there. It's not in the palm at all. That's a mistake a lot of amateurs make. They grab it here in the palm. It feels very strong, but we have to actually weaken the position of the right hand, so we just have it in the fingers. I'll slide that up, and my lifeline on the trail hand will cover my thumb, and you'll see my hands are very close together. And if you look at both the V's on the target and the trail hand, they are coming to a point, both of them, pretty much right in front of my shoulder here, my trail shoulder. So there's your check mark. Where are the V's going? Where are they pointing? That is the best grip to get the club back into that square position. So the ball flight law of getting the club back into a very square position has a lot to do with how you're holding on to it, with how you're gripping it. So, check your V's. Where are they? Just in the fingers of the trail hand, palm, fingers of the target hand. Now when I lift it up, I'll show you the back end of it here. There's 3 ways to join your hands together. And these are all preferences. One's not right and the rest wrong. They're all right. You should try them all. I suggest the first one is the one that I'll show you that's the least used. It's just a 10-finger grip. When we have all the fingers on the golf club, kind of like we call the baseball grip, we nickname it. And this is a very acceptable grip. It's even though it's the least popular, and I suggest that if your wrists are not very active and you're not very strong in your forearms and wrists, this is a great grip for you to adopt. Because it really will get your hands and wrists working a lot more than the other 2 options that we have here. So having all 10 fingers on the club is not wrong. You just want to snug your hands up as close as you can. The second way to do it is to just take the baby finger of the trail hand and put it over the knuckle of the target hand. So there's really virtually only 1 finger off the golf club. And this is the most popular by far grip. It's kind of the in-between the 10-finger, and what we get to is the interlocking grip. It's kind of the medium that most people really adopt. All right, so this doesn't liven up your trail hand as much as the 10-finger grip, but it puts it in a very good position to let it not be too lively. The last grip is the interlocking. We can say interlock these 2 fingers, and really 2 fingers are off the club here. That would be the second most popular grip, used by lots of famous players such as Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, to name a couple. This grip would deaden your wrist motion a little bit, and for really good players that's a good thing. They don't want to get too handsy in their swings. They don't need it. They create a lot of leverage, enough leverage with this grip, and their body creates tremendous speed, more so than the amateurs. So this is a grip that I would say if you're not using your hands lively enough, I would not use it, but it's kind of the other extreme from the norm. So 10-finger, 1 finger off, and then the interlocking. Try them all. They all work, and whatever one suits you the best and is the most comfortable. Just get your V's pointing to your trail shoulder, and you'll be set to go, and it'll be the best way in this position to square the club up at impact. So that's the grip. Okay, once we have the grip, we have to get into a good position, a very balanced position with our body to enable to withstand the forces of the golf swing and stay in balance throughout all that dynamic motion there. So the best way of getting set is to really imagine that you're holding. I always like to feel it. I'm getting ready to hold something really heavy, or I'm in the gym and I'm ready to curl some weights. So I would have to have the weight kind of on the balls of my feet here in order to be able to curl some weights. If I was too much out on my toes, obviously I'd be gone if I tried to curl the weights, or if I'm back on my heels, I'll lose my balance as I try to curl the weights. But if my weight is more evenly distributed, a little bit forward in my stance on the balls of my feet, you can see that I could be in good balance all the way through curling some weights or accepting something heavy. Kind of looks like the center linebacker position. So once we get into our stance and our posture, it's important as we do that as we get into our set position, is to bend at the hips. And then you could grip the club and extend your arms with the butt of the club pointed to your stomach. Extend the target arm straight, and then just bend from the hips until the club's on the ground, and then unlock your knees, because we cannot play stiff-legged. The legs come into play quite a bit, so we're going to unlock them a little bit. Don't bend them too much. You see a lot of people with a lot of bend down here. You just have to unlock them. We like to stand as tall as we can in the golf swing. That would allow you to have a wider arc in your swing. Now, this part of the back should be pretty straight, but not stiff. What we don't want to do is what? Slouch over and get our chin down on our chest, because we can't move that way. So, you want to stand fairly tall, get your chin up. Arms extended, and there's a good look at a good starting position for your setup position, for your stance and posture and weight distribution. All right, so the next part is, once you're in this position, to hit the ball relatively straight, what we want to see is, once we get into that good posture and stance position, this is our target line on our mat, this nice white line going through, imaginary line going through where I want to hit the ball on the target line. Once I get lined up to hit the ball into my stance and posture, it's really would be a benefit for you to make sure your shoulders and your hips and your feet, all three of them, are parallel to that line. It's very important. Most amateurs have their shoulders pointed over here at the starting position, where you can see the left arm is tugged into the body real tight and the right arm is extended out. It should be, the arm should be both equally as far away, opposed to that. And now we have a good chance as we're coming in to return that club on the right path. So there's a ball flight law. How you set up has a whole bunch to do with the path of the swing. So once I get set, my last little check is, am I parallel with my feet, shoulders, and hips to the line of flight? You might even take a club and put it up there and say, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm ready to go. All right, so posture and alignment's very, very important. Now, what we're going to do after this is go through where the ball is played in your stance. But first, I think we should investigate maybe how far away am I supposed to stand. A lot of people really have problems with that. And we see all the time as I get around this side of the mat that we see people either standing way too far from the ball, which makes them have to bend over too much and makes them short. And what that does is really tightens in the arc of your swing, and that's not a very powerful position to be in. So you see this a lot. And then the odd time you'll see people actually too close to the ball, where they're almost standing erect. And that's a very bad place to be too, because your balance is really off. You can't stay balanced with this position throughout the golf swing. You'll definitely start pulling up just to find balance. So we're somewhere in between that. How far do my arms come from the body? Basically, if you just bent from the hips, kept your arms nicely in your side, bent from the hips, flexed your knees a little bit, and just let your arms fall out in front of you, that seems to be a very balanced position. This gets my weight nicely in the balls of my feet. And I am nicely aligned to the target. My arms are pretty much the same distance each away from my body, maybe even the target arm a little further out than the trail arm. Okay, so there is a pretty good indication of how far I should be away. Now obviously if I start going out here, I feel the weight gravitate towards my toes. I'm off balance. I'll have to move my body to respond to that. Or if I'm too close to the ball, I'm also off balance. I feel the weight going toward my heels too much. So how far am I supposed to be out is basically when my left arm, target arm's extended,
The arms are the same distance away from my body, and I'm in balance on the balls of my feet. Everybody's different, so everybody will be a little further away or closer to the ball because of the body types, but this is the balanced position you want to be in. Here's a little test you can do. Take your trail arm, hand, and just let it float away from the grip. And you can see it's coming straight back in a straight line for maybe the first foot from my target hand. That means I'm probably the right distance from the ball. Obviously, if I get further back, you can see where it goes, floats in this way. Or if I get too close, it kind of floats out that way a little bit. So it's a little test before you hit it maybe. Just get set, make sure your alignment, grip, posture, your stance, chin up a hair. Maybe give it one of these just to test it out before you bring the club back. So posture, stance is very, very important. And now we're going to talk about ball position, a bone of contention for a lot of people. Let's try to clear that up, and then we'll carry on from there. There you go. Okay, ball position. It's very important where you play the ball between your feet and the width of your stance in each shot. And it's going to differ for clubs. This is probably the easiest way to do it. There's a myriad of different ways you can approach this, but this seems to work for most of my students that I teach better than any other method. For most of your short irons, and I call short irons probably 6, 7, 8, 9 into your pitching wedges and those clubs, you're really safe in playing the ball dead in the middle of your feet. For this promotes a couple of things, because once you get your grip, once you get your stance and posture, what you want to do is move your hands ever so slightly closer to your target knee. Okay? Not a way out there, just a little closer. So you can see that there's a little bit of lean in the shaft. That promotes you hitting down into the ball, striking the ball first, and then the turf after. So because we know that shorter clubs make kind of more U-shaped swings because they're not very long, they have a sharper angle of attack into the ball than the longer clubs do. The longer clubs are more of a sweeping motion. So we have to play the ball so that with the irons, two things happen. What will happen here as I'm coming down to hit the ball, and that's the yellow ball right in the middle, this club should be still descending, hopefully catching the very bottom of the ball, and then the turf about where that white ball is. Okay? So with our iron shots, to get them in the air, that club is actually descending down into it, pinching it into the ground, spinning the ball up. What mistake amateurs make all the time is as they come into the shot, they try, their body almost stops moving, and they try to slide or scoop this club underneath the ball and lift it up. We see it all the time. I think you should stop doing that because it's physically impossible anyway. The ground gets in the way. So a lot of top shots or a lot of hitting behind because that club is scooping up. You can see the club face reaching the ball before the hands, which really just puts this as a 7-iron, but by the time, if I was lucky enough to slide it under there, I've changed the loft into about a 9-iron. All I'm going to do is hit a real high shot with nothing on it anyway. Where the pros, the other thing happens. They lead in, their hands are ahead of the club face, so at impact, you can see the shaft lean. That club has actually gone from what we call the traditional loft to less loft. So they're hitting, if this is a 7-iron, probably a 6.5-iron loft by the time they hit it. And we, because we're scooping it, trying to slide it under, are hitting maybe a 9-iron. So now you know why they'll hit a 7-iron, almost twice as far as you do if you're one of these scoopers. And I'm afraid it's about 98% of us that do that. So we're really going to have to gear in on that. So with my irons, I've got to play the ball in the middle, which really isn't the bottom of my swing. The real true bottom of your swing is right about here, right a little bit on the left side of your left breast, straight down. You can see right about where that white ball is basically where the club will bottom out. To hit an iron, you have to play it a little bit back of that so we catch it on the way down. So now when we go into longer clubs, such as your fairway woods or longer irons, this ball disappears. The second ball forward toward the target would be a good position for these clubs. Now note, my hands are still a little bit to the left of center here, but because the ball's not back here, the lean in the shaft is hardly any at all, just a little bit. So this is really kind of playing the ball right about at the very bottom of the arc of the swing. Maybe a touch on the way down. So if you take any divot with a longer club, it's going to be very, very shallow, just a little bit of turf. But they demand more of a sweeping motion because they're a longer club. All right, then we get to the final one, which will be our driver. You'll note that my hands are still a little bit ahead. I never keep inching them there. Once they're there, they stay there with every club. But you can see now the shaft is what? It's pretty straight up and down, maybe even leaning this way a little bit. So I never move my hands. Once they're there, I just move position of the ball. And there is the driver. That is beyond the bottom of the arc, and it'll start coming up. And I'm going to hit this off the tee and slightly on the upswing because it is sitting on the tee. So you can imagine if that was in the middle with the driver, I would be pounding down into it like the irons, and I would just pop it straight up in the air. So ball position becomes very, very important. There's only those three positions. You can fool around with them a little bit. There's always a little bit of this, a little bit of that to them. However, if shorter irons in the middle, then the longer irons, fairway woods, maybe hybrids, a little bit more to the target side, and then your driver, your tee shot, pretty much inside your left hill. The last thing I have to say about ball position would be stance width. The shorter the club, maybe your feet should be a little narrower because we have to shift over to our forward leg in time for impact. Should have about 85% over your target hip. So if I'm too wide with a short club, I'll never get the weight shifted in time. The widest you'd ever want to get was probably with your longest club, your driver. But basically, I would say that the distance between my heels would match the outside of my shoulders. That's a pretty balanced position. Don't ever get into this mode here because you'll never get your weight shifted. But you can get too narrow for longer clubs as well. So you're going to have to fool with that a bit because it all depends how well you shift your weight over to your target side, which we'll get into a little later. But just narrow it in a little bit as the clubs get shorter, widen out as they get longer until you find your spot there. So that's ball position. I think it's the best way to explain it. Put it to use so that you never want to, on your setup, be in a position where you made a mistake. Because your setup in golf, you have time to grip it, you have time to get your distance from the ball, you have time to get your alignment, and you have time to set your ball position up. So there's some checks in your setup position, and you should go through a little pre-shot routine to make sure alignment, make sure of balance, make sure of posture, and make sure of ball position and grip pressure. Don't squeeze the club too hard. Just hard enough so you won't let it go, but soft enough so you can create some speed. Okay? So there's ball position. There's grip, posture, stance, and alignment. And we'll talk a little bit about your position, the width of your stance, and I would say that both feet should be flared out just a little bit, just for balance, and that puts you into a really solid position. The body has to be ready for the motion to stay in balance so you can create some speed. So setup's really important. Don't ignore your little checkpoints because you don't want to make a bad shot just setting up in a bad position. There's really no excuse for it if you know what to do. All right, so pay attention to your setup and balance. Okay, into section 2. We're going to discuss the proper use of your hinging of the wrist. How do we hinge the wrist? The wrist hinge is a lever in the swing that creates a tremendous amount of power as you're swinging down it through the shot. It probably contributes almost 60% of all your distance is going to be how you what we call set the club or hinge, and then shift and rehinge through to the other side. It's one of golf's levers that we have to get right, because it really means distance and getting your club face into a square position. So hinging is an upward motion. As we hinge the club, we hinge it rather up, even though it's going back on a little bit of angle. It's more of an up, in an up position. And where we find people, the things that they do wrong, and I'll just step over here, is instead of hinging the club, they tend to let their wrist roll, as you can see, and that doesn't really get the shaft up there. And then in order for them to hit the ball straight, you can see where the club face, they have to really roll them back, and that's a hard thing to time, and the distance isn't there. The other thing that we see them do, instead of, they may not roll, but they may take their wrist and bend it. We see this a lot from beginners. There's a target wrist just bent. Whatever you do with your wrists, whatever on your target hand, whatever you do, whatever position that is there, that is your club face. So we want to reach the top of the swing with this, the forearm, and the wrist being a nice flat and a line here, which means your club, when you bring it back, is still in that square position. If you roll the club, you can see the target wrist is bent this way, which means as I bring the club back, wow, look over to the right. And if I cup it, you can see that at impact, the club face is going to make it go way over to the left. So hinging the club properly and unhinging the club properly is very, very important in the golf swing. We want to swing back to a hip-high position. If you're hinging the club properly, you'll see this position with the toe of the club sticking right up in the ground. You can see this is flat. It isn't bent or rolled either way. So at the top of the swing, you're going to get this look here. That is your club face. It's a mirror image. Whatever you do with your wrist, you do with the club face. So let's just quickly watch. I'll go back very slowly. You can see the disciplines here and what you should be doing on just a mini shot as I'm swinging back. I'm just going to hinge my wrist a little bit here into that one-piece takeaway, and then as I shift my weight, keep my head where it is, rotate my body through. I'm unhinging, hopefully to getting back to what we call a very square position. You can see the position of my left wrist, nice and flat. That marries up with this. And then I am going to rehinge over on that side so I get the equal opposite look of here. So a good little practice for you thing to do is swing it back so the toe of the club's in the air. That means you hinged it properly. Swing it through to post impact, and there's the equal opposite with the toe of the club in the air. If you don't do it properly and you scoop, you'll see the trail hand underneath the shaft and the face of the club over there. That's what 95% of the people do. They scoop instead of hinging, unhinging, and rehinging. Your knuckles should be pointing down at this point, never up. So this drill is going to really help you to hinge properly, back, and through this little one-piece takeaway. Another good way to do it is to pre-hinge the club. So we'll just get this ball out of the way here a little bit. And just take your wrists after a good setup. Always be in a setup position when you're doing drills. Hinge the club up so it's horizontal from the ground. That's a 90-degree wrist hinge. That's as much as you'd ever hinge. Then just swing it back. That really gives me the feel. Gives me in a perfect position here. And then through, rehinge over here. That's one of the drills. The second drill is a very effective drill. You can play this way. I have thousands of students playing this way because they have trouble with their wrist hinge, one of the most important parts of the swing. They pre-hinge this way. You can see they barely move their arms or body, but just really the target hand really stays where it is. We just hinge the club again 90 degrees, and then you see the toe in the air. That's how they start their swings. They take care of that wrist hinge right away, and then the rest is just a turn, and away they go. So a couple of ways, a couple of drills to really get the feel of what your wrists do in the swing. Hinge it up, swing, pre-hinge, and then swing. Either one of those will give you the feel of getting the toe up, releasing the club and getting the toe up. We don't want to come through without releasing the club.
That's the wrist hinge. Very, very important to getting some distance and leverage, which causes distance in your golf swing. Okay, section 3 is a very good drill. It's a one-piece takeaway. This is a drill we're going to do before we get into the full motion of the backswing. These are mini shots. This little one-piece takeaway drill is an awesome drill for you to actually, when you go to the range. I start all my sessions by just swinging the ball, what we call one-piece takeaway, to hip high, back to that post impact to hip high, and just hit balls. And that's the moment of truth in your golf swing. That's a hit area, as we're going to get into later. So it's a nice little drill. It does a couple things. It gets the wrist hinging properly, as we just went through, and you'll start to feel the body rotation. So from a very good setup position, what we're going to do with this drill, we're going to talk about this triangle that comes down to a point here, my hands across my shoulders, chest in the middle of the triangle. So what we're going to do in the one-piece takeaway is we're going to swing it back, and I'll get on this side here so you can see the path and why we spend a little attention to this one-piece takeaway. Ideally, as we get back and we start to rotate around our spine, I'm going to just move this entire triangle and swing so my hands are about as high as my right hip. And I'm going to stop here, and when I stop, you're going to see my chest is dead in the middle of my arm, so this whole triangle came back together. The shaft of the club at this point should be on a line parallel down my toe line here, so I always put a club here to see if I'm on the right track. So if I put this club down, it'll just be an extension of that one now. And the important thing, I hinge my wrist properly because the toe of the club is sitting in the air right there, right where it should be. So this dictates where the rest of my swing path is going. I see people do this all the time. They get way back here real quick in the golf swings, and then they have nowhere to go but up here, and you can see that loop they're trying to hit the ball on. What we want to do is keep our circle intact here. Just think of it leaning kind of like a hula hoop, that we don't want to have loops in it. So one-piece takeaway, starts with the upper body, no lower body at all, hardly. It's just upper body starts to rotate around. There's the position. Would be great to continue on the rest of your golf swing. One-piece takeaway. Now, there's the other side of the one-piece takeaway. Once I get the club here, you're going to see equal opposites happening in post-impact. My checks here is the shaft down my toe line? Yeah. Is the toe in the air of the club? Yes. Is my chest between my arms? Yes. I feel a little bit of weight starting to move toward my right heel here. Now, in slow motion, as I swing through, keeping my head very still, I'm going to go to post-impact, which is hip high on the other side. You can see I've unhinged to square, starting to rehinge, and there's post-impact there, the same distance. Now you can see equal opposites. There's the shaft down my toe line again, chest between my arms, toe of the club back in the air. But the only difference is I have a lot more weight on my target side now, and it's gravitated towards my left heel and out toward my right toe. The difference between here and here is simply on the downswing, my lower body gets involved before my upper. So it's going to look like this, hardly any lower body to here, a little bit of turn, and then slow motion, look at the weight shift, the hips leading, and there's post-impact right there. It's really almost the equal opposite of the backswing, except for this weight shift that is so crucial in the golf swing. So I practice this a lot. Get into the good position here in the one-piece takeaway on the way back, head stays, into my one post-impact position here, and then look up to see and do my checks to see where I am. Great way to practice, hitting little shots, getting your wrist involved, and starting to feel that change of direction through the most important part of the swing, which is the impact, which is really everything happens from here to here. That's the one-piece takeaway. I would hit a lot of balls doing that on the range. Okay, we're progressing along. We're going to get right into the backswing, the wind-up, the coiling, the storing up of energy so that we can uncoil and return through the ball and to get the most out of our shots. This is a very important part of the swing. The backswing will dictate what happens on the downswing, and will dictate, if you do it properly, add the power into your shot. First thing about the backswing, what the body does in the golf swing, this is the training part. This is what you can do at home without a club, with a club. You don't have to be at the range. Train your body these moves. It's more important to train your body to get them to do it right than it is to hit a golf ball. Train your body first so that under pressure it'll know what to do. All right, so the overall look of the backswing is rotary. The spine is kind of the pole of the merry-go-round, and what we're trying to do is rotate our shoulders and body around that spine, and the hips will also turn about half the distance of the shoulders. So we're striving for, if we can do it, no more than a 90-degree shoulder turn. There's no use going there because you're not going to get any more power, you're going to lose power. Try for about 90 degrees, which would have our target shoulder right in the middle of our feet at the top of the swing. So the whole thing is rotary, a weight shift, and then rotary. There's no room for any of this sideways motion in the golf swing, especially in the backswing. And we see that all the time. It's a misconception on shifting weight is what we call the sway, which is you don't want it, okay? And we're going to give you some anti-sway drills here in a moment. So there's several drills to emulate your backswing. How does it feel? What does it look like? I'll go through a few of them right now. There's a couple without a club. And first of all, whenever you do these, please get into your starting position. So I'm in my starting position. Obviously, my right shoulder in my starting position is lower than my left because my right hand is lower on the grip. And actually, as I get the ball up for a driver, you'll even see more tilt. When the ball is more in the center, there won't be quite as much. But don't tilt it. Just if your target arm's extended and we bring our hands directly underneath to grip it, that'll be your natural tilt. Your spine will actually be tilting a little bit that way. All right, so I'm ready to go. Head stays very quiet in the swing. However, there can be a little bit of rotation to the trail side as you go back. It's pretty hard to make a 90-degree turn when the head is dead still or else pointing in the wrong direction. So the head does actually move in full swings a little bit, as we'll see. So there I am, ball's in the center. I'll pretend I have an iron, and really all I'm going to do here now is rotate around my spine, and if your chin's down there you won't be able to do it, so chin up a little bit and rotate 90 degrees, okay, as close as you can. And once you've turned that 90 degrees, your left shoulder should be right over top of that ball. It's a turn, it's not a tilt. This is what people do wrong. They tilt, and that's really not shifting any weight, it's leaving it all over here. That's a powerless position to be because the equal opposite will get you falling away as you're going through instead of hitting through. So watch, you don't tilt. Just think of your sternum is there, and what I'm going to do is face it right around. So my back faces the target. And as I'm doing this, the weight starts to gravitate towards my right heel and out towards my left toe. So right now, I could still hold on to something really heavy. I'm in balance. Any kind of swaying, you're off balance. So that's a pretty easy drill. Just think of your spine as the pole of the merry-go-round and rotate 90 degrees around it. And then kick off your back foot and rotate to the finish, which is a lot different. Okay, so this is one of what the body does in the backswing. You should practice that a lot. There's another drill now that we'll use. And this one here is basically, I guess we can do it without a club again. It's what I call the praying position. I'm going to get into my stance. I always stay in my stance when I do these. And I'm going to do the same drill. It's going to be a 90-degree turn. Only this time, once I'm here, I feel my hands are pretty much out from my trail shoulder here, the middle of my medial muscle here of the deltoid. As I turn 90 degrees, then I'm just going to extend my arms away, comfortably away from that trail shoulder, so the target arm's pretty straight. The trail arm will be bent because the club has been hinged instead of out here. So it's this look, rotate, and extend. And that's where you should be at the top of the backswing. Okay, so now we've involved the arms as well as the rotation of the body. First practice the body, and then get into this position, hands about shin high, rotate, extend out. One thing here, watch my trail hand as I'm up here. It should be bent back a little bit, which flattens out my target wrist, which means the club is dead square. This is slice if you're up here at this point, and that's hooking the ball. So once I'm here, that's the look you should have. Slightly bent. Okay? That's what we call the tray position. Very important to get rid of slices. So a couple of drills. One's the praying drill, involves not only the turn, but gives you an idea where your hands are going to wind up at the top of your swing, which is directly out from your right shoulder, or trail shoulder. And it also involves the rotation. Now, you get a golf club in your hand, there's two other drills I want you to do. One is the arm extension drill, where we get into a really good starting position, extend the arms out in front and hinge the club 90 degrees, about chin high again. Now, that's taking care of what the arms and hands do. There's a little bend this way, there's that tray position, and then the only thing I have left here is what? Is the rotation 90 degrees, okay? Once I'm there, what you'll see is my hands have arrived at the same place as I did in the praying position, directly out from the middle of my medial muscle there of my right shoulder. You can see that's about a 45-degree angle with that left arm, trail arm, or target arm. All right? Now why do we want to swing in this path, this slanted circle? Because if you swing too much up here, the club's going to come down very sharply and you're going to pound into the ground. That's a horrible position to be in. Some people try to bring the club straight back and up, and there's not enough around. There's not enough around to get any power. And then the opposite of that is, the other mistake would be to be too much around, like a baseball swing. And there's not any up to hit down into the ball. So this position here is right in the middle of this and that. Really a good position to marry up the body turn, and the arms are up enough to hit down into the ball at the same time. That is why we're trying to get to that position at the top of our swing. Once again, there's the drill. Arms extended, rotate 90 degrees, and you can see where I am, ready to go and bring the club back in that same path. All right, that's another drill to teach your body what to do in the backswing. Final one is something like that. First, I mean, you can hit balls doing this one. Just bring the club up and rest it on your trail shoulder, or just about there, and then rotate 90 degrees, and then extend the arms out. They all get you into a perfect backswing position. All right, there's the side view of that. And there's where my hands arrive. I call that position A. Right there. So once I get set up, my only thought is to swing my arms back around and comfortably away from my body until I get to, I know, that position A. Right? I know where that is because I've done drills, lots of drills, to find out where that is. All right? So the last part of this thing is then, I can't worry about all this, but once I've trained my body and I found out exactly where my hands go from here to there, extending out, I have to know where that position is. It's pretty easy. So if I did the drill really quietly, there's the rotation. I always do my drills in kind of slow motion. There is where my hands get to. I just deem that position A right there. It's almost like a coat hook or something out of a wall. There. Now, when I'm playing, I know if I can direct my hands there, I should wind up with a 90-degree turn, and my body should just react and be in good shape. So I'm going to try to eliminate the mess in between and go find that A position. So I'm going to swing back in slow motion. As I'm swinging back, it's very key here now. Once I've established my angle of my back, spine angle, my height, that as I swing back, I don't lift up, because I'll have to come back down or I'll miss the ball, or I don't get any shorter because
because I'll find the ground. I have to stay very level here, keeping that spine angle, as we call it, intact here. So, let's see if I can direct my hands there real slow. I believe they're right out from my trail shoulder now. That is that A position. I think that look would be identical to me doing the drill. And I'm in the same position. So eventually, my only thought is, once I'm ready to play, is just direct my hands to that A position, and that forces my body to rotate 90 degrees. So one thing causes all the others to happen. That's finding A, I call it. And then with the doing the drills, coupling with the drills, and then just swinging to see if you look the same, trying to find that A position, that should eliminate a lot of worries about the backswing. The backswing, you can fall into pitfalls. And we're going to look at them here and give you a couple of backswing drills here over and above what we've given you. These are body training things. I do these in slow motion again. The last thing I'm going to say is watch the trail knee. As you're swinging, there's a little bit of flex in it as we start. And I see people do this all the time. They'll lock it. And now on the downswing, which has to be initiated with the lower body, not the upper body, they can't kick off because it's in lock. So the upper backswing is always initiated from the belt up, dragging the lower body back. So watch the flex of this knee. It never changes. So at this point, I feel a little bit more weight toward my trail heel and out toward my target toe. I'm in really good balance. And obviously, now I'm in a good position to shift and turn through the shot and get some distance. So what are the pitfalls? The pitfalls are swaying. We see it all the time. And so we have to get kind of what can we do to stop that? I just use a couple of chairs. Get a chair at home or a TV table and butt that right up against your thigh or your hip, and just maybe put it on a little angle like so, and get up to the edge of it so you can actually swing. So what we're seeing here is, this is what we see all day in the golf course as people shift their weight. They go like this. So their spine, the pole of the merry-go-round, all of a sudden is over here. So that's where my circle is going to be. So you got to really watch that as you're swinging back. And these are people initiating their backswing with their lower bodies, not their upper. They go like that. So you can see I've already taken the pole and brought it over here. And if you kick that chair over that way, this is a very powerless position to be. Sideways to sideways, there's no rotation. Rotation's where power comes. So I put this right up against my thigh, and then if you do your drills or you swing, your thigh should still remain on there. It's going to, obviously your hips are going to turn, but it should still be abutted against the back of this chair. We don't want that, nor do we want this. Okay? So there it is. Now just swing back, and you'll see that it's staying there, right to the top of your backswing. All right. So there it is. All right. So I can kick off of it. This stops your sway. Now, if you don't have a chair out on the driving range, which probably you won't, you can do other things. You can take anything. I use because I use this for other parts of the swing. It's just a little cleaning pad here. It's a little sponge. I put it underneath this part of my foot that kind of keeps this glued down there. So it's pretty tough for me to roll over and get a sway here. I feel the weight more to the inside of this foot like I should, and then there I go. I'm turning around this brace. I don't want to lose this. This is the brace. This is what I turn around. This kind of is a resistance spot. Right now there isn't any resistance. Right now there is some resistance, which means my hips are only going to travel half as far as my shoulders, which something's winding up against something. As soon as you lose this by straightening your leg or going over here, you've lost all that power. Okay? Very important where this is, the knee, the trail knee, and swaying is one of the worst things. The last thing is pulling up. A lot of people attempting to get the club way up there for some reason come out of their posture. So as they're on their backswing, they're more like this. Trying to get more swing. If your build says and your body type says this is the end of your swing right here, even if it's not quite 90 degrees, if I have to pull up just to get some extra distance, I've just added a whole new problem to my swing, a whole new area that I cannot repeat. Up and down, I got to get back down, same way. Last thing to watch is the tilt. If you're tilting, reverse weight shifting, remember when the shoulders, as we did our drills, tilted instead of rotated. This is one of the other things we see all the time in golf. There's really no weight shift. It's still here. I don't have any power to hit down. I'll probably back up from it. So make sure your drills are proper. Go find A. You can see I'm loaded. My back's pretty straight, maybe leaning this way a bit. You never want that, because the equal opposite is that. So watch the tilt, watch the sways. Those are drills that are really going to help you to get the club back into what? That nice A position, boom, right where your hands are comfortably out from there, so I can return it on the same path, right? There are some backswing drills for you. I would really, really practice those. Okay, we got to the top of the backswing and giving you some anti-sway drills and getting into that, trying to find that A position. And now it's a good time to throw this drill in before we get into our next session, which is the downswing. What happens? What is the first move in the downswing? This drill is kind of right in the middle. It's really it'd be advantageous sometimes to go to the range, and if you're forever getting into that bad backswing position and a downswing position, is to swing and hit balls or just make swings with your feet dead together. This is really, there's only one thing you can do properly here as you swing to A, and that's rotate and rotate. There's no room with your feet together for swaying and pulling up, because you're going to lose your balance. So this is a multi-purpose little drill. It just take probably 3/4 swings on the way to A, swing through to the finish with your feet together. You should be in pretty good balance when you're done, and it really emphasizes the rotation around your spine on both sides of the swing. Any swaying now, of course, you're going to be really off balance. It's really funny, most of my students that do this, I have people that play with their feet together all the time now because they hit the ball way better. It stops them from pulling up and losing their balance. So I would practice a lot from a great starting position and swing, maybe 3/4 swings for a while with your feet together, or almost together, and you're going to really, that's one of the best hitting drills that we have. Rotation, and it really gets the arm swinging to where they're supposed to find A, both sides to a good finish. So that's the feet together drill. It's a great drill. It's a great hitting drill to get out to the range. So now we gotta get to the top of our swing, and once we're up there, here's the number one abused part of the golf swing that, again, it's way up into the 90% of most amateurs make, including me lots of times. Once we get up to the top of the swing, there has to be a sequence of how you swing down into the shot. How do you start? How do you change directions? How do you get that stored up energy turned back in through the ball? Just remember that, we don't want to, it's pretty hard to put these things into, here's what you do, here's what you do, here's what you do. But this is really what should happen. The lower body is the initiator on the way down, where the upper body was on the way back. So once you're up to the top of your swing, to change directions, you can see, watch my lower body, watch the weight move from this hip over to this hip, so a little bit of lateral move over there to get the weight over to the left hip. And you can see the shoulders are the next to move. And then comes the body and the hands. The last thing that gets there is the impact. Okay, so sequentially, lower, shoulders, arms, hands, and then through to what we call a 5-point finish that we're going to work on as we get through impact. So, how do you start that downswing? We want to be able to start it so that we can finish in good balance with both your hips, both your shoulders, your chest, and your trail knee pointing down the target line with pretty much almost all your weight over
your forward foot. You should be able to tap your back foot 3 times. That means if you can get into the finish position, you have shifted properly and the right sequence on the way down. Most people never get there. So here's what I see all the time. People get to a good A position and the first thing that moves is their upper body. And if that happens, they're going to hit a lot of times behind the ball or top the ball. There's no momentum. There's nothing getting you down into the ball. So there's no weight shift because they initiated their downswing from the belt up. It's usually the shoulders throwing the club out, which will affect the path, obviously, cutting across the ball and slicing all day. Okay, very powerless position to be in. So we have to get you feeling how to initiate that, and we have some drills to help you along the way. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is have some fun with a couple of them, and just get an old towel at home. So not to be scientific, too scientific. We're just going to call it the towel drill. I'm going to grip it with my target hand on top and my trail hand underneath. Maybe yay far apart. In the old days, about 6 inches. I don't know how many centimeters that is, unfortunately. Now, I'm going to get into my setup position. Always setup position. And this is what's going to happen. I'm going to swing to the top, go find A. I'm going to pause for a bit, and then I'm going to drop my trail hand and pull that towel through to the finish. And look at the finish. I'm in perfect balance. So what really initiated that? It was what? The target side leading. The target side initiating before the trail side gets into it. And that's where power comes from. Now, you can see what would happen if I initiated this the wrong way with my upper body. There's no power going through there at all. So, this is a great little drill. Swing up and stop, drop your trail arm, and pull to the finish. That gives you the sense of really what starts. It's really the left, or the target hip, the target knee, getting the weight over as you're rotating through. It gives you a great sense of power. And this is powerless, as you can see. Okay? Now you can do that also taking a club. You've got to be a little more careful. Hold it upside down. Always hang on to it right under the hosel here. And I'm going to do the same thing. But you'll really be able to hear, maybe be able to hear a little bit of difference here. So swing it up, stop, drop, and then swoosh the club to a finish. Look at the balance here. Perfectly in balance. All right? Now, that's the same as the tall drill, only with the club. And one good thing you can see, you could hear the loudest, probably, part of that noise was right there where the ball was. And I didn't really swing that hard. You don't have to. Start down fairly slow and gradually pick up speed. Make all your energy there. Now, most people will get back, and their first move is throwing the club at the ball as fast as they can and not moving anything down here. And this is what this would sound like. You can see I hit the ground back here. I didn't have my weight shifted. That was a lot. Actually, the noisiest part of that swing was back here. So people that get up here and just throw the club with their arms and hands and don't do anything here, waste all their energy here. You can swing as hard as you want from there. You won't get any distance. This is a better look. Watch how slow I start and listen to where the noise is. Here comes the left side pull. Head stays. Look at the balance. Same as the towel drill. Don't be in a hurry on your way down. It takes time to shift and roll too. It should be like a car gradually picking up speed. That's where you want the noise, not back here with the people that really charge at it with their upper bodies. So there's the towel drill, the swoosh drill. I guess I'll just hang on to this club. And if all else fails, we have another one that really helps people. And it may look a little silly, but I have people that play this way because the biggest thing that happens in golf that we don't do that makes us different than the pros, that there's one thing, is weight shift so we get into a good impact position. It's well into the 90th percentile of all the players do not shift their weight or get over to their target side enough at impact to make a big difference in their swing. All right, so this drill here is what we call a step drill. I'm going to start off
Normally, I'm going to take my target foot and put it next to my trail. Then I'm going to swing to A, and just as I get there, I'm going to step and swing to the finish. Okay, it's much like the baseball swing. So in baseball, obviously the ball comes, what's the first thing we do? We get the weight over to it so we can turn through and get some power. No one's ever hit home runs from back here. All right, so the step drill kind of forces you into that. One more time. Dress position, target foot back to trail, to A, step and swing. Make sure that you don't do this and then step. Get used to the lower body initiating your downswing. So that's a step drill. You can hit balls doing that. I warm up like that all the time. All right, so it's a good way to practice, to really get the feel of that momentum through the golf ball. There's a couple other little things we can do as well for the start down. And one is to use the chair drill again, only let's put it on this side. We'll put it on this side of my body. I'm going to leave about that much room between my target hip and the end of this chair, so that if you're shifting your weight properly, this is what you should feel. There, right at this point, the hip is already abutted up against that chair. My weight is more over my target foot, and then I can turn my hips out of the way and finish the swing. And you'll see that much like the backswing, it's still against my thigh here. So what you do when you start with your upper body is this. You never get over there. There's no weight. It's just like throwing a club like this, or throwing a ball off your wrong foot. You need to shift and rotate. That's where the power comes. Great drill. Do it in slow motion. Do your drills in slow motion. Now, what's the first thing that's leading? There goes the weight. And then continue rotating through to get me into a great impact position. So the chair drill is really good and equal. This one here, though, we do wind up going a little further to the target than we start to get momentum. So you leave a little space there when you start. You could actually put one here and work your backswing and your downswing at the same time. It's a great drill that gets you over to your target side. Another good drill, because there's a whole bunch there's a bunch of downswing drills because they're all important. Don't do them all. Just do the one that makes sense to you, that you can really learn. That's the left side lead, and then the right side gets into it. Never the trail side first. It's like any other hurling or swinging. The lower body initiates the move, and then it's really the target side pulling before you start releasing the right side. Put a little sponge. Fits right under your right armpit. This is really a good drill. Here's what a lot of people would do, and I'll do it this way. As they're swinging back, you can see it's still there. It's still in between. I'm not trying to jam it in. My elbow's never going to be like this at the top of my swing. It's going to be a little out, but I'm still connected here. I'm not disconnected. All right, so there's where it's going to stay. I have a lot of people practice this. Now, if I start my downswing wrong, using my upper body, you can see how the club fires out from my body, and I'll probably lose that on the way down. When what really should happen is, I always think that's full of water, and I'm just touching it there. What should really happen, if I start the downswing properly with a step drill or getting that lower body lead, my elbow actually starts coming in. See where it is here? Coming in. That's the right move on the way down. See the lower body? And I feel like I'm squeezing all the water out of this sponge, and it'll stay there through impact. So it just looks a little bit like this. This is an awesome one for people who take the club and what we call cast it first on their downswing, instead of this being the last thing that moves. Okay? I'll just show you that one more time. There's the sponge, and right here, there's the shift. Right now I felt like I'm just squeezing the water. My elbow comes into my side, close to my side, and there's where it is in impact. You can see I still have it there. I'll have it till post-impact, and I'll probably lose it here. Okay? So it's a sponge drill. It's really a good drill. If you lose it, then you've initiated the downswing in the wrong fashion. Okay? So we have sponge drill, we have step drill, we have swoosh drill, we have towel drill, everything to start you shifting into your target side, making sure that's the first thing you do. One last one would be, that I'll just give you, would be butting your rear end up against a chair, okay? Both cheeks, taking your position, and as I swing back, you can see my right cheek is staying on the chair, and as I come down, instead of this, see how it's moving off the back of the chair because I'm throwing the club out with the upper body? You should get the feeling that it's sliding more down this way before it starts to turn. So it's more there. All right? So it would be better maybe if I did it this way so you'd get a little better look. Okay, there it is. There it is. See how it's sliding back. Not a lot, just the first thing you don't want to do is that. Right? And that would happen if you got up here and just started throwing that club and not shifting your weight. So that's a little good start down. It's the initial move you make that's going to determine where you're going to be in impact. And the initial move has to be from the feet up. Honest to goodness. You cannot start the downswing with your upper body. And unfortunately, into the mid-90 percentiles, that's what people do. And that separates them from really crack amateurs or touring professionals to get into the right impact. We're going to get into impact on the next section, and you'll see that it's a result of everything you did on your start down. Okay? So there is your downswing, the start of your downswing. Practice all those drills. The weight shift is key to hitting the ball. Okay, now we've gone right kind of from the start, grip, posture, stance, wrist hinging, a few little drills to get to that nice A position, and then how we start the swing down with all those drills. Now comes the moment of truth. If we started that swing down properly, that would be the path, is the right path coming into the ball, and which we're going to discuss at the very end. It would get us into a good impact position. What does a good impact position look like, and how do we get there? Well, first the start down is key, and then what happens through the swing to the finish is the moment of truth, what I call it in a swing. I think if you hit a baseball, or just about any sport, like if you're hitting the baseball really, there goes the weight shift as the ball's coming, and I'm right about kind of shoulder to shoulder, almost like hip to hip in golf. And that's when really my wrist release, the body keeps rotating, and all the power comes from here. Probably I could hit 90% of my distance from here to there in a golf shot, hip to hip, as much, about 90% of my full swing. So how do we get into the right impact? What does it look like? What are some things that can help me out? Impact, there's some things that you got to check at impact, and I'll show you what they are right now. I'll get into an impact position, and it's different than obviously if you're in the same position as you start when you hit the ball, there's no weight shift at all. So this would be the position I would be as I started. I got equal weight over pretty much over each foot. Maybe sometimes I'll lean a little bit on my forward leg with irons so I could hit down into them a little bit better. But if I start equal, this is what I look like. Now keeping the upper body pretty much where it is, I'm going to just slide a little bit this way and get about 70% of the way over the left hip, keeping my upper body and head where it is. There it is. And then I'm going to take this back foot and start rolling it in, and so you can see the heel of the back foot is starting to come off the ground. And you can see where the hips have gotten out of the way. They've already turned, and I got about 90% of the way over here at this point, or pretty close to it, and I'm starting to roll up off this foot. So in other words, I, boom, hit into something. You can see the power, bang. That's what you want to look like at impact. Well, the upper body pretty much is back to where it started, but the lower body is a lot different. It's rotated through, and the weight's pretty much all toward my heel and and on the target foot. Most amateurs get to here. I have film upon film when I take films and people swing, and probably more than, at least 9 out of 10 are like here at impact. You can see right now, there's no weight shift at all. There's my belt buckle. It's about where it was. And if you're one of these people, you'll have a chicken wing, because this is what will happen. Your body stops, the weight shift stops, and then the arms and the shoulders take over, and you release the club. You unhinge prematurely. There's that cupping, scooping that we talked about in the one-piece takeaway. And chicken wing. This is what you look like. So if you always feel like your arms are coming really in tight to you and you have this chicken wing, that's not the same as doing what? That one-piece takeaway drill. Remember? So people do not, they quit shifting through impact is what I'm saying. Then something quits and they just try to hit it with their hands and they get into this scooping motion. So they never get here, what compresses the ball. So I'm hitting down because the weight's on the left. You can see see the power I got in the shaft there. If I'm just here, it's just a flick. So being able to get into that position is really, really important. There's a couple of things you can do to help. One is I suggest you go get one of these smash bags. All right? You can buy them pretty well at any golf store. Line this up so that it's in the middle of your feet. I got a 7-iron here. I'm going to get into my position, and the thing is I don't want to swing like really, really hard at this because I want to be able to kind of freeze my position at impact, and then I'm going to go through what you should look for at impact. Okay? Where should you be? All right, here we go. I'm going to swing back, probably just about a 3/4 swing, not full out. And I'm going to stop. Now you can see where my club face is dead square to the line. It isn't open, it isn't closed. My head is not moved anywhere that way. My upper body is what? Pretty much where it started. And you can see where my lower body is in perfect position to have power through the shot. So what you're looking for are the hips cleared out of the way, maybe 20, 30 degrees, with the majority of your weight over your left hip, left foot. Right heel starting to come off the ground. Your upper body's back into about the same position. And you can see the hands leading the club head into the mat. This should all be one straight line now, down the shaft. Now here's what happens if I don't shift. Okay? We'll try that again. And here's the no shifters, which I see all the time. Okay? Nice backswing. There you can see all the weight's back here. My club face never got to the ball before my hands, so I scooped at it, and the club face is pointing over there to boot, which would be, what? A big slice. This is what happens when you don't shift through there. Okay? So, very important. The other thing that people do right at impact is pull up. They pull up because they're trying to get the ball in the air. So their spine doesn't stay, it pulls up. So that looks like this. I'm at a nice level now right here. I decide to pull up out of the shot. Take a look where the club face is now, pointing way over there. These are people that slice it, start right and go right. This is all the weights back here. And when I follow through, there's that god-awful chicken wing. Look again, right? Well, how am I supposed to look? Well, we're going to do this one more time. Get set. Stay level, don't pull up. Start your weight shift. Stop at impact, put the club down, and do your checks. There's that straight line. Club head square, hips out of the way, upper body about back to where it was. I really feel solid here now. I could push this on down the line. I can see power there, no power here. So this is the impact bag is great. You should practice that a lot. Don't hit it so hard that you can't hold your spot after. It's not how far you whack it. It's really, where am I at impact? Have I released? Am I up off this foot? All right, one more time, nice and slow motion. Don't stop and pull up, and don't start your swing with your upper body. Perfect. This is probably emulates impact better than anything that you could ever do. Okay? Now getting to a full finish is another thing. So make some swings where you finish into that 5-point finish. Go to A, shift into the 5-point finish, which is both hips, both shoulders, right knee, trail knee, all pointing down the target line. And I could balance myself here all day. So just getting to the finish sometimes will make you, the thought of getting to the finish, just go from A to the finish. Now, any pulling up along the way, there's no weight shift, or any starting with the upper body, you're not going to get to that finish. So a lot of those are really, really good drills for impact. There's a couple more that we're going to investigate, and we'll do the right and left hand kind of mini shots here. So what I do is I choke right down on the club. I'm only going to swing back. I do this in slow motion. I get the club to there, and if I don't use my lower body at all here and I just swing my arm and uncock my wrist, that's what I see all day. There's that scoop. Horrible. But if I get this involved, you can see the huge difference. That's your club face. So I practice a lot of these. Just toe in the air, slow motion to impact, keep my head there, keep rotating. There's toe back in the air, just like that one-piece takeaway. So I hit a lot of shots just with one hand, real easy. And if I'm not in this position here at impact, I'll top it every time. So I need to shift and rotate through. Right hand's the same. There's the right hand, still even bent back a little bit. Toe in the air. So one-handed shots really, really help you. Obviously no weight shift, you're all over the map. Okay, so those will help you get into a really good hitting position at impact. Impact is everything. We saw what we look for. Straight left arm, straight left wrist. There is your club face, not there or there. Okay, the last one is a slow motion. Do things in slow motion. Do the one-piece takeaway in slow motion. Slow motion is deep practice. That's what we call deep practice. I would rather go and swing back into that one-piece takeaway, do my checks. There we go. Head stays. There goes the weight shift and the hips turning through. There's impact. Hold that position for a while. Then get into post-impact. And then look up and do your checks. That's a great way to feel. See the extension on the trail arm here, just like the extension on the target arm here. So that's a great little drill, just doing things in slow motion and see, where am I there? If you get back here flat-footed, boy oh boy, you're gonna really start hammering the ground. So there's one thing I want to clear up right now when I'm doing this thing is I get asked a lot, and this is a good place to bring it in. When you're swinging back, does the left foot stay on the ground? Or can we lift the heel off a little bit? Well, I think either or is fine. If you're really supple, you can leave that on the ground and still get a 90 turn. If you're not so supple, especially guys with tight lats and whatnot, I think it's to the advantage. Jack Nicklaus lifted it up. Johnny Miller did, and Jack is still the best player ever. And if you lift this heel up off the ground just a little bit on the backswing, we never want this kind of a stuff, but just a little bit, your first move is putting it down. And that is a pretty good way. It's almost like the step drill, isn't it? And that's a pretty good way to get into a good impact position as well. So, yeah, it's permissible. Darn right it is. And in fact, senior golfers for sure should be lifting that up quite a bit. So there it is. Now, there. That motion there, just getting the heel down, was that weight shift. Then all I have to do is keep turning into it. Look where I am at impact. Perfect. Sometimes just keeping this flat doesn't allow you to kind of get the feel of the move into that side. So lifting this hill up a little bit is not a bad thing at all. In fact, a few of the younger tour players are starting to do that now. So that's impact. Getting into impact, a great position into impact, so that the left wrist target wrist is straight line. The hands are leading in if it's an iron down into the shot like that. Upper body is where it was, and lower body is led. That's like tossing something. tossing something. Put your hand down here, hold it there, and hit the back of it. That's a good drill. You're not going to do much damage if you do this. All right? So impact. It's an impact bag, slow motion drills, one-handed drills. It's going to get you in a lot better position because that's the most abused. The start down on where you are here. Don't be flat-footed with your weight back there. Okay, those are impact drills. Now I got saving the last one for the best. I got to get set up for it, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're all set up for our last impact drill. This is a drill I kind of, I guess invented at the driving range. It's really, where does your club bottom out? You know, if you don't shift your weight and your weight's back here, you're probably going to hit way behind the ball, or if you miss the ground, the club will be coming up. By the time it gets to the ball, you'll top it. So where actually is your club hitting the ground? Where is it bottoming out? Because we know with irons, the short irons especially, we have to contact the ball somewhat before that. So I have the ball, I'll bend down here right in the middle, as you can see. There I put a piece of masking tape behind it. That would be the faulty shot. If you'd ever shifted your weight, you would hit that first. And I have one just in front of the ball, which is where the club should actually ground out. So this club, if it's swung right and the weight shift is there and getting into that impact position, should be coming down, catching that ball there, pinching it into the ground, and that's where the club should bottom out. So your divot should start a little in front of the ball, never behind the ball. Okay? So I was wondering, well, how can you tell on a mat? So this is a great drill, and you may not get it your first time. Sometimes I got to work at it a little bit myself because my weight shift isn't as good as it could be. I put the club right in the middle, right at the back of where the ball would be, not there. Okay? Now when I swing, that's the first thing I want to hit. That's where the club should bottom out. Certainly not back there. All right, so we start with an address position, the club at the back. Okay, we swing to A, and we shift, and we swing through to the finish and hold. I'll bring the club back in front of me, and you can see there's the proof that that's where the club bottom out. You see that? Right on the edge of my golf club. So that would have been a terrific shot. I touched the ground there before anywhere else. All right? So, really good shot. I like to see this. All right, that would have been a super shot. I would have hit the ball first and then the tape. So, that takes a little bit of doing, but when you get that and get that feel of hitting down into it and hitting that piece of tape, that ball would be just before that. You would be compressing it, pinching it into the ground, getting some really good spin on it, and it would go a long ways to getting you into the right impact position. That's all you need is masking tape. Big deal. Little piece on the mat right here, just in front of the ball. Okay. You don't even need one back there, but I put one there because sometimes I want to see how bad my weight shift is and how far behind the ball I hit. And then I have to really, really focus on my impact drills. There it is again. That's where the ball is. There's where I should be bottoming out, just on the front. If I hit back there, and this time I'll try to hit back there on purpose. There I am. I'm getting set, ready to go. Nice backswing, staying level. Now, I think I grounded out somewhere back here. You say, I didn't even touch that. I hit right about here. That's because, watch my finish of my swing here. There's no weight shift. Nothing's getting me over there. And I don't mean I'm going sideways. No weight is turning over to get me to that position. So if that's where you're hitting, just think about what you're doing on the golf course, hitting away behind the ball, or if you're lucky enough to miss the ground, it's on the way up. So let's try that again, and we'll try to do it a little better. Get the weight shifting. There. You see that back tape? I never got my weight over to this side nearly enough. So that's where I connected. I would have hit probably just before the ball, probably right about here, which would have been ground before ball, meaning I got to plow through the ground and all the yardage disappears, right? So, boy, I'll tell you, this is probably the best drill there is out there of making sure you transfer, finding out where your club is bottoming out. If I was playing all day and I was hitting back here, no matter what, then I would be moving the ball back there. That would be my compensation for the day. I would try to at least hit before my club grounded out there. You're not going to get as much distance if you do that, but at least that would be the compensation for the day. So we really try to want to get that moving off of that position there. Okay? It takes a while. It takes me a while to make sure I get the right weight shift so I get over to the left side. There. That was a little better. I skimmed it on top there. So it's a practice thing, so you can find out where your swing bottoms out. What would interfere with that? Pulling up, not shifting, a myriad of things. I have a tendency to pull up and impact a little bit because of my back. That's why I probably didn't quite reach that one. It's very hard for me to stay in it with my hip when I play right-handed. However, that's my excuse. I'm sure you're going to have one too. But this is foolproof. This is the greatest drill that there is for where am I at impact, how's my weight transferring, a myriad of things in the swing that you're doing wrong. That's just simply the tape drill, and that's our last but probably most important with the smash bag impact drill that you can do. Okay, back to the next section. It's actually the last section is what we call post-impact and finish. It's very important to know where you are through what I call post-impact. That would be the hip-high position, opposite of the one-piece takeaway, and then into the proper finish. So you should spend some time actually hitting shorter shots and holding on to your post-impact position and be looking for a couple of things here. So I'm just going to swing back to maybe an 8 o'clock position here with my hands and keeping my head very still. I'm going to swing through to post-op and hold. I'm still looking down where the ball was at this point. Then, and only now, I'm going to lift my head up to do my checks. What you want to see is that shaft down your toe line, the toe of the club back in the air, my chest between my arms. You know, just virtually the opposite of this, but the only difference is what happens here on the downswing. The last thing right below my chest should be my belt buckle, and I'm off this heel at this point with 100% of my weight over here almost. So, post-impact, head stays. Don't lift it up, don't pull up, hold, and then do your checks. Chest between the arms, belt buckle right between my arms, right below my chest, starting to release my weight off of that. This is not cutting it. This is not it. This is what we see all the time, or some little bit of shift. The belt buckle actually gets there before this does. So if you look in slow motion, you see the belt buckle leading, chest and hands catching up right here. Another good little drill would be to swing back, hold on to your belt buckle, and start pulling it over so they all match up at this point. That's post-impact. That's where you should be, and your head should still be down slightly behind the ball or over top of it with an iron, not up out of the shot until at least here in your swing do you come up out of the shot. So a really good way to practice that is to get into your post-impact position. So just get there, and from here, swing back to A, through to the finish and hold for 1, 2, 3. I just want to make sure I swing through that position, so I get my body familiar with it by starting there, then to A, through to the finish, and hold. And I should be into that 5-point finish. Just getting to that finish should make me shift my weight properly, or else I'll never get there. Let's post-impact. Fool around with it a little bit. Be familiar where that is. Do a lot of these one-piece takeaway hip-to-hip drill, and make sure that you hold on to that, and then maybe go all the way to A and all the way through the finish, and you'll see that your balance is right on. So that's post-impact. It's very important. We don't want to be short-armed here. The target arm is really extended at this point. Or the trail arm is really extended. The target arm is bent, just like the opposite here. to here. All right, so that's post-impact. It's important we get here and not here, where most of us get. So now we're going to, that's the last of our sections. Now we're going to just talk a little bit about a path drill, something that may help you to get rid of that darn slice. We're going to go into a drill that'll set you up a little bit differently to get you swinging as you're coming through the ball more from 7 o'clock on the clock out to 1 o'clock instead of that horrible 5 o'clock to 11, which causes slices. So we're going to get into the path drill right away. Okay, this is the path drill. Again, ball flight, one of the laws where the path the club approached the ball, it will dictate pretty much where the ball is going to start off or what direction it's going to start off. And if we get into, assuming we get into a good backswing position and we don't start the swing down with the upper body that throws the club out across, this is the target line. So if I throw it out here, I'm outside the target line. This is inside, right here. So that's our terminology. If I don't shift right and throw the club out, there it is outside the target line, and it has nowhere to go from here except where? This way. So you can see how I'm glancing the below, cutting across, weak shots off to the right. And you'll definitely pull up. People wonder why they pull up. Well, if I swung like this and had the club out here coming in toward my body, I have to get out of the way. There's no room for it to get in here. And that's a double fault right there. I've cut across it and stood up at the same time. It's just going to be a horrible shot. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to swing this club back. It'll go down the target line just for a little bit, and then it moves inside because I'm on my way in that arc to A. And what we have to do to initiate the downswing properly is start to swing the club back in that same path. Inside to square to about there, and then back on that same tilted circle to the finish. So that's the only possible way. That path's the only possible way you could ever hit a ball straight, right? But most people, because they do this, now it could be from their setup with their shoulders not in a square position or parallel, causes a lot of that. Weight shifting causes that, throwing the club from the top. But we're going to encourage you to swing more into out. Start the ball a little bit to the right and make it move a little bit to the left to your target. That's called a draw. That's how you get the most yardage. So instead of this motion, we're going to have more of this motion. Inside to a little bit out and through. So to help you out in there, we're going to get into a regular stance position, and we're going to play the ball a little bit further back on our stance because of what we're going to do. So instead of the middle, I'm just going to move it a half a ball back that way maybe. And instead of having my stance nice and square here, I'm going to take my trail foot, turn it open a bit, and move it back in behind a couple. Just move it back in behind a couple of inches here, centimeters. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to take my shoulders and match it with this line here. This is the key, shoulders. I don't want my shoulders square anymore. So you can see my shoulders are actually pointing out to the right of the target line, and so are my feet. Right? That line, that line. The only thing I'm going to do is keep this club face square to the original target line, okay, instead of there. Now what this will force me to do is swing the club back in around me and swing more in to out. The only thing I have to remember here is never pull up out of the shot, because you'll go so far over there it won't even be funny. So there's a danger here. But if you stay in the shot, in other words, keep your spine angle, keep your head behind the ball, and let your wrist rotate through, unhinge, get the toe of the club kind of wrapping around the ball as the club's shaft is going out that way. You're going to put right to left spin on. You're going to start off right of the target because that's where the path, and then the spin will draw you back into the middle. That's overspin. So hitting a shot like that opposed to a slice it's 4 to 5 times the roll. You're going to get the most distance drawing the ball that way. 90% cut across it and slice it. There, set up, pull your shoulders back, keep the club face aiming down the center, just swing to A, don't do any different, shift, This will force you to swing a little bit more, kind of like thinking 7 to 1. The only thing you have to really do is impact, make sure you're releasing your wrists, feeling your right hand rolling over your left, and kind of getting that part of the club to the ball before that part. You really have to practice that, never that. Okay? That should start the ball off to the right of your target and draw it back. Takes a little bit of practice, but just altering your stance a little bit, like so. So that's what we call closing your shoulders. This is opening, which is a slice. Just keep this club face aiming down your original target line, and just go ahead and swing into out, and right at impact, roll them over. And you'll put the right spin on it. And you can see it's a lot easier to get good extension out here. This way, you'll always be pulling up out of the shot, and you'll never hit it anywhere. So that's a path drill, trying to eliminate that slice. And this is why we have the numbers on here. Obviously, these are for left-handed players going through that way. And even if you get this half right, you'll hit the ball a lot straighter. You'll eliminate a lot of that slice. So I think the path and this other position here where your right hand is slightly in the tray position in the top of the swing, those two things there with a proper grip are really going to help you hit the ball a heck of a lot straighter. So that's this program. I think if you practice these different sections, and you'll find on your DVD that you'll just be able to click on the sections that you have to work on. Do the drills that mean the most to you under each section. We have more than one drill for each section. And do the drills religiously. Without a ball, you should be able to practice this at home. I think golf is training. It's training your body what to do, and having the ball there is not gonna work, especially for new golfers. So do these motion drills. Do all the drills without a ball. Practice these hip-to-hip shots. Practice the impact. Do things in slow motion. You saw how quietly I started to swing down to get speed down there instead of jumping at it. You should be swinging at a 1-2 pace, twice as fast down as up. Most amateurs are about 1-4 with bad technique. Most pros are 1-3 at the most, but mostly 1-2. Hitting the ball square gives them the distance. So if you practice all these things, isolate what you really need to practice at and deep practice it by doing it in slow motion and doing lots of practice before hitting balls. You're going to train your body, and you're going to know your golf swing, and you're going to know how to fix it, and at least you'll know the positions you're supposed to be in through this program. Hope that helped you a lot. I know that we have thousands of golfers that have gone through this program that have come back year after year. We have one lady now, it'll be 18th year in a row she's visited us for this session. So it's invaluable, and these are drills you can easily adapt and learn, your body will learn. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you out in the golf course.